Good Boy is a 2025 American supernatural horror film directed by Ben Leonberg and his feature debut and co-written with Alex Cannon. The film stars Shane Jensen, Ariel Friedman, Larry Fessenden, and the main star of the film, Indy. The film is out in theaters and was released last night, and it's been getting so many good reviews, and rightfully so, because this film is phenomenal. I saw the trailer back when it dropped in August, and I was so excited for this film, and I will say, it did not let down. In this video, I'll be giving my honest, spoiler-free review. If you guys want to see more film reviews, make sure to hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications button, so you guys never miss a post. Let's get straight into this review. Todd, a young man with a long-term illness, moves from New York City to his late grandfather's house deep in the woods. He brings his loyal dog, Indy. Todd's sister, Vera, is worried about him living out there alone. She thinks the house is haunted and might have something to do with their grandfather's death. Soon after they arrive, Indy starts noticing something strange. Dark shapes in the shadows and a creepy, muddy figure that looks like a skeleton. As you can tell, this movie is all from a dog's perspective, and that dog, of course, is Indy, who gives one hell of a performance. Even though it's an animal, I still think he gives one of the best performances of 2025. And that is no joke, and I mean that with all seriousness. If this dog can win an Oscar, please let him win it, because he did amazing. I do want to get right into the rating, and I want to rate this out of 5 stars. And out of 5 stars, I'd have to give it a 4. This film is phenomenal. If you're a big horror fan, you will love this film. If you are a dog person, you will love this film. You can tell this film was made with so much love and passion that even after the film ends, this really isn't a spoiler, they give you a little behind the scenes on how the film was made, and it's so cool to see how they made Indy look in these directions or follow some fake dog around, and that was really cool to see. What is also really cool to see is that Indy's face expressions change so much through this movie that you think that he's sad or he's scared or he's anxious or he's confused, but realistically Indy's just making his normal face, his normal rest face. But as a viewer, you're looking at it and going, since I'm scared, that has to mean that the dog, or even if in an instance it was a human, that they are scared. And this technique is used throughout many different horror films and just films in general. The directing behind this film is amazing. The story is so interesting. But the biggest thing to come out of this film has to be the horror aspect of this film. Taking a dog and making him the main character of the movie, and not just that, us seeing a dog's perspective in a horror film is so cool and creative. And I really think this is one of the most creative horror films of maybe even the last decade. I think this is just, it's definitely one of my favorite horror films of the year. And we've had so many good horror films this year, but this one is definitely up there. Now, so far into problems, I really only have one problem, and it really isn't even that big of a problem. Some of the pacing is just slow. I think in the beginning it's kind of slow, but again, that isn't bad at all. It's really not that big of a problem. I think there's way more highs than there are any lows. And trust me, I've been thinking for the last 24 hours since I've seen this film if there are any other lows, and I can't think of any. Now, does this mean everyone's not going to have some lows of this film? No. People might have some problems, but for me, I really don't have that many problems with this film. Other than that, let's just get into the positives. I'm going to name 4 positives, and before we get into the positives though, I do want to give one spoiler away, and that is the spoiler that everyone's been asking and everyone's been talking about, and that is if the dog dies in the movie. If you don't want to hear the spoiler, skip until this time and you will not hear the spoiler at all, because I am going to talk about it a little, and it might make some people emotional. The lady right next to me in the theater, she was crying because of the scene, and I can get it. But if you do not want to hear the spoiler, click 20 seconds because it's a pretty big spoiler, and it has nothing to do with Indy, but with somebody else. Now, Indy, the main character of the film, does not die. He survives the whole film, and he's the hero of this film. But there is a dead dog in the film. Of course, physically you do not see the dog dead. You just see the skeleton of the dog. I can understand that could, have some people emotional, especially if you had dogs and they passed away. It could get you crying a little bit, made me tear up, and some people right next to me started crying too, and I can completely understand it. So if you don't want to see that, it's really not in the film that long. It's in the film for like 10 seconds, then I'll show it again. But Indy survives, so Indy is okay. That's it for that. The first big positive I want to get into is the story. The story is fantastic. I know some people have a little bit of problems with the story, but me personally, I didn't really have a problem with it. I think the whole story was interesting from start to end, and the story of a man and his whole family having this same sickness for generations and generations is really interesting to see. But I think the biggest part is moving back into that old house. The film revolves around Indy, of course, but mainly what Indy is scared of is this house, because there are a bunch of spirits, including the grandfather who passed away here, and the sister thinking the house is haunted. And pretty much the history with this house is that everyone that's lived here, or the grandfather that lived here, has passed away. And that's why the sister is so scared for them to move back to the house. Other than that, I do think the story is just so interesting, and it has you engaged from start to end. I don't think there will be a moment where you would be bored in the film. And if there is, if you guys have a problem in the film where you guys are bored, I want to hear where it is, because I seriously didn't. But for the story out of 10, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. I think the story was fantastic from start to end. It's a normal ghost story. Overall, it was just an amazing story. The second biggest positive with this film is the jump scares. Now, trust me when I say this, I've seen almost 50 or more than 50 horror films in my life, and I do not get scared that easily. This film had me scared, and I'm not lying when I say this. I jumped out of my seat a couple times just because how scary this film is. It's the moments where you think the jump scares are going to happen, and you think someone's going to pop out or someone's going to grab Indy, but sometimes that moment won't even happen. It's that moment right there that you are like, oh my god, like what's about to happen? You are so scared. And that's what I love about this film, is it's actually scary. And I think a lot of people can agree with me that watching the trailer, this was one of the first films in a long time that I was actually scared of. There are a lot of good jump scares in this film, and I think if you don't get scared easily, or even if you do get scared easily, this one is gonna scare you a lot, especially if you have a dog. We all know, if you guys have a dog, that when they stare into those corners or bark randomly when you don't hear anything, you're always wondering, what are they looking at? What are they barking at? And this film will have you scared when they do that. For the scares, I had to give it a 10 out of 10. Really scary film, and that's coming from someone who doesn't easily get scared. This one definitely got me scared and had me jumping out of my seat constantly during the film. My third biggest positive is the acting. Not just from Indy, but Todd also gives an amazing performance, who is played by Shane Jensen. Larry Fessenden, who gives the performance of the grandfather, is also amazing. Everyone just gives amazing performances in this film, but the main standout, Indy, just gives the best performance. Now, if you genuinely think that people are joking about Indy's performance, they aren't, because this dog will have you wondering what he's feeling. And sometimes you'll think he's scared, sometimes you'll think he's sad or he's confused. But that's what I love, is his facial expressions give so much about what he's feeling. And from a dog, that's just amazing. And I mean, this dog has to win some award for the acting in this film. I really do think this is like one of the best animal performances in any film, up there with the dog in The Thing, who was amazing in that movie too. And I really loved Indy's performance. And from a dog too, it's gonna have you crying some moments. There's this moment where he tries to go on the bed and the owner's coughing up blood, and he says something to Indy, and Indy looks confused and sad, and that part kind of got me. And Indy just, again, gives such a good performance. And honestly, like I said, one of my favorite performances of the year. For the acting in this film, I'm gonna have to give it a 10 out of 10. It's simple. Everyone just gives some of the best performances, and it's really emotional, really good, really scary. And I highly recommend, again, that you check this out in theaters because it's such a good film, especially for these performances. My last and fourth positive is the ending. The ending was fantastic. It was an amazing ending. It's really cool how they pulled off that twist, and I'm not going to give any spoilers other than there was a twist at the end, and how they pulled it off was just really, really good. I liked how it really wasn't a happy ending. It was still a sad ending, even though, of course, again, spoiler, if you don't want to hear the spoiler, skip 10 seconds. Indy survives. But it's still a very sad ending. There's a dialogue at the end that will have you crying. And it's just, overall, from start to finish, it has you engaged. And I love it. It's such a good film. Especially when you leave the movie, you're gonna be talking about the ending for a while because it's such a good ending. For the ending, I'm gonna have to give it a 10 out of 10. Simple. It's an amazing ending, an emotional ending, and it will have you crying. I do want to say, after the movie ends, please stay in the theaters because there is something nice they do for you at the end of the movie. After all that crying and after all that emotion, they do something nice. There's a behind the scenes on how they made the film. It's really interesting, and I highly recommend you stay after the movie ends because it's really cool to see how they made this film, and it's so unique. If I had to go with one more positive, it has to be how they directed this film. The director of this film did such a good job, and if he can either get nominated or win some type of award, he should, because he was an amazing director and he did so good. And I'm pretty sure they said this took 3 years of filming, and I can see why. It's hard to get a dog to do certain stuff like fall asleep on command or just do something for the camera, and it's really hard to do that. And 3 years of filming, and it really paid off because the film was phenomenal. But that is the review for Good Boy. I highly recommend you go check this one out. Go see it in theaters. I just please listen to me when I say this. Go see it in theaters. It's such a good theater experience. The sound, the soundtrack, everything is just amazing. The barks, the whines, it all hits in theaters. So please go support this film in theaters. Go support an independent film. This film is phenomenal. And to be honest, it's one of my favorite films of the year. And I really, really highly recommend you go check this one out, especially if you're a horror fan, because this one is fantastic. Well, that is it for today's video. I hope everyone is having a great week and a great weekend. I hope everyone had an amazing day. And that's it. If you guys enjoyed this video, like, hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications so you never miss a post. That's all for today. Peace out, guys. Have a great night.